Hello, guys. Dieter here with another streaming interview from Brussels. He is knighted as a brewer. He studied engineering and now he is brewing in the West Hook in Flanders his own beer where he has a big Cadillac and an awesome brewery. Welcome, Jefs Pirens. How are you doing?
All right. Thank you very much. Nice to see you. Has been some time since we have met. So according to this crisis, is the way to meet people and to have a conversation. So glad to see you.
Yeah. And how is the brewery now doing during this pandemic?
Well, the problem is I don't have just the brewery. I also have a bar and a restaurant. Actually, according to Rate Beer, for 3 consecutive years in a row, this is the brew pub of Belgium. Problem was, weeks ago, when they announced that every bar and every had to close, that meant for us immediately close down, and so a big loss of income, which is very, very difficult. So the only thing I have left, luckily I have a business, so I had the brewery left. But actually, I brewed quite some stock already, and because of this crisis, sales are plummeting as well. I see a lot of people drinking at home, but actually, a lot of not a lot of them are buying new beer. Actually, a lot of them are digging into their cellars.
Yes.
So actually, I don't know for other breweries, but my sales are coming to a standstill almost. And I have been brewing a couple brews in this crisis because I had customers who ordered complete brews, and I also brewed a new beer called antivirus as a antivirus for the lockdown. It's called lockdown beer. So I try to be creative. This is the upside of crises like this. People start getting way more creative than they used to. So as a creative and as a creative brewer, I also developed a new beer, which is going to be a blonde 5%, easy drinkable, with a touch of smokiness in there. And going to be ready in by the time I hope the crisis will be almost done as well, so we can all enjoy beer as like a solution or the cure for this crisis.
Yeah. You also meant the blonde beer you made. We interviewed you at the Brussels Beer Fest last year. Tell us a little bit about the. It's a fucking blonde beer, I assume the name was? The not blonde one?
Oh yeah, I had yeah, that was called the Blackout.
Ah,
That was a beer I made actually to prove to people that the color of a beer is not a taste of a beer. And I know if you look at a black beer, you have expectations. If you look at a blonde beer, you have quite a lot of variety of expectations. But in Belgium, actually, our country is referred as the country of beer of the world. But actually, the Belgian people and the crowd in Belgium lacks knowledge of beer. So 9 out of 10 Belgian people, if you ask them the question, what do you like as a beer? They will answer with a blonde beer or a brown beer. And that's about it what they know. Some of them know the term pills. That's gonna be it. 9 out of 10 people is like this. But when someone comes in my bar, I have a mixed group of people. So I have beer geeks, I have beer critics, I have brewers, I have people who just like a good pint of beer, and I have people who don't know anything about beer.
yeah.
So that last group quite often is going to order, well, do whatever you want, but give me a blonde.
Yeah, color picking.
And then I try to explain to them, yeah, indeed, it's very stupid. I have made a little billboard that said, pick your beer by style and by alcohol ABV instead of color. Because
Yes.
going, if you're going to buy a car, you don't go to the shop and tell the guy that you need a green or blue car. You're gonna tell him what's necessary as information for him to sell you the car. So for beer, it's the same thing. if you ask me for a blonde, I can still pour you a Geuze, a sour beer. I can still pour you an IPA, which is so bitter. I can still pour you an 11% blonde or a 3% blonde. So it's quite difficult for me what they want. Although I know if they ask for a blonde, they want a 6% blonde beer, simple, drinkable. But just to prove them wrong, I developed a 6.6 beer called Blackout, which is pitch black in color. You can't see through; it's pitch black. But it really tastes like a regular Belgian 6.5% blonde beer.
Right. I also mentioned you didn't start with beer. I looked you up. You were an engineer. You worked for different companies. A little bit back, rewinding in history. How did the beer passion kicked in into your life?
Well, that's a question often asked. Well, the answer developed through the years. It's quite simple. Actually, it is a snowball effect. When I was young, when I was 16, that's the legal drinking age in Belgium, I started drinking Jupiler and Leffe, just like actually almost everyone in those days. But I was still doing engineering school, and when I had to do my final year, I had a big test to do. I have to write an essay, and I chose it about beer. Back then, I didn't know anything about brewing, and not even a lot about beer. I just liked drinking beer. I still don't dare to read it again with the knowledge I have nowadays. I think it's full of errors and bullshit. But a couple of years after that, about 20 years old, I went with a couple of friends to Bruges. I went to a Drugs Beertje, where Daisy had been doing the bar for so many years. And that's where I was surprised to see the menu. And there was about 300 beers in there. And they were all names and pictures that I know. So I had a couple of beers and I paid 5 Belgian francs, which was the currency back then, for the
Now we
bottles to
know
take
in
home.
which times we are.
I Yeah, well, that was a long time ago. Okay, I'm 30 years old, 38 years old, so I still used to pay in Belgian francs as well. But back in those days, I was about 20 years old, so that must have been in the year 2000 or something like that. Um, I took the bottles home, and that was like the beginning of a collection and my interest in beer. And from that moment on, actually, there was not a lot about talking about beer, and beer nerds and geeks were not around. There have been beer clubs in Belgium, but the level of them back then was very, very simple. Beer was not popular, was not hip, and was not followed by a lot of people back then. So my first steps in the beer world was not actually a world, it was something awkward. Was going to bars where they sold wines and beer, attending the first beer festivals. Um, I really rolled up in it. I got to know more beers, more styles, step by step. It was a long learning curve because the books that were out were very boring and old fashioned. And I had to learn it day by day by drinking it, tasting it, talking. And I visited a lot of breweries. I went to beer festivals, and I really into beer. And about was it 2011? I started brewing myself uh, back home. I had quite some space there, and I built a very small hobby brewery, brewed 25 liters in a kit I made myself. And from that moment on, it's a snowball effect. After doing some brews at home, I went to brewery Maanhout, which was just 7 kilometers away, and he brewed in a little kit 600 liters. So that was the first beer I ever brewed officially to put on the market. From that moment on, I did a couple of brews there. Then I brewed some beers at Struisen, some beers at some beers at Gaverhopke, some beers at De Lete. So I was actually a gypsy brewer.
Okay.
For me, the most important thing was that I always brewed myself.
And
And I know
you
if you brew in a brewery of another brewer,
Mm-hmm.
It's not actually that you who do the entire brew. You don't know the tips and the tweaks of the
Yeah.
brewery. But I always wanted to be there doing the work, doing parts, and really making the beer myself. I didn't want to be a brew company or a beer company. I wanted to be a brew company, as in you brew the beer yourself instead of just ordering it and selling it.
Yeah.
And it was in 2015 that I moved houses, and I came here in Eden, where I built my bar. And in the same year, the first year I built the bar and intended the bar, I also built the brewery. So from 2016, I own my own brewery. I built myself as well. He's
Mm-hmm.
called Frankie because of the analogy to Franklin, who is built from different pieces. My brewery is built of different pieces of equipment as well. And since 2016, we've been brewing every beer ourselves in our own brewery.
Yeah. And your brewery, I visited once a couple of years ago with the Poldische Biervrienden, has also a very yeah, alternative atmosphere with the car in there and the restaurant. How did those pieces came together? Was it for you? I have a bunch of old, cool, vintage stuff, and I put it there, or was that a concept thought up front?
No, it was not. Actually, when you come to my place, and that's why I often intend to invite customers as well. If you come to my place, you see who I am. Actually,
Mm.
anyone who is everything that is around here is a reflection of myself. So I do own a couple of California cruising bikes because I'm a member of a bicycle club who rides these kind of bikes. I do have a Cadillac for the last 14 years because that is
Yeah.
my favorite type of car. It's a '67 Cadillac Fleetwood Brougham.
It still
Um,
drives?
I do have a very rich interior, and because there was never money in my life, I learned how to think myself. And the combination of all these things is what you see right now. If you enter my bar, the restaurant, brewery, you see there is no new and there is no money, but there is a lot of vintage stuff that everyone thinks is
Yeah.
very nice and how good looking it is. But that is years of collecting stuff and really hanging around everywhere, trying to meet people, buy some stuff on the internet, really get into it. If I put my teeth into something, I go down in it, and I still, even without any time left during a week, during a day, I still intend to diverse in things that I like to call cool stuff. In the back,
Yeah.
you can see my record collection. Since I was 18, I've never
Yes.
bought a CD. I only bought records. And now with this crisis, I spend a lot of time in this area. This is actually my apartment above the building where the bar is and the restaurant is. I am I am not very here because I work about 16 hours a day every day. So I don't spend a lot of time here. But actually, this is a very nice space, but I'm never here. Actually, this is the first time in 2 years that this table where I'm sitting at is empty. It actually has been full of Lego bricks for the last 2 years,
Yeah.
and I didn't have any time to spend. So this week I took some time and nighttime as well to get things sorted. Well, actually, now I can see my complete collection of Lego bricks standing around, but well sorted. So there is no big plan, or there is nothing that links the one thing to the other thing, except for me and me having a big interest in nerdy stuff. Once a nerd, always a nerd. I probably will be a nerd forever. And yes, I do own a collection of Magic the Gathering cards as well. I am a proper nerd. I just don't wear glasses. But I that's nerd stuff and vintage stuff is my interest, and putting that all together makes a really nice atmosphere in the bar and the rest.
Yeah. Your beer styles of D.O.M, the Oude Malderij Brewing, how did that came together? Are you influenced by other brewers or styles, or you want to make traditional with a little touch of an experiment, or how does that go?
Well, maybe the answer to this question is quite to the previous question. It is all stuff put together. I always brew what I like to drink, so I don't gonna brew beers that I will not like to drink. I am not a commercial brewer. I will not do investigation in the market. And if, let me
Yeah.
say, if an 8.5% triple is very hip right now, I won't brew that. I see a lot of hip stuff passing by, and I jump on the wagon. It's not my thing. Although I am very interested in trying a lot of styles and specialties. I am not the kind of brewer that will do this commercially good. I made my first proper triple Belgian brewer after 6 years of brewing. Usually, that is the first beer a brewer ever makes, because that is in Belgium the best-selling beer.
Yeah.
Um, my first beer was a brown beer, the Kantelaar. It's 8% brown, because that was the beer then and still right now that I like the most. A very good, proper, decent Belgian brown ale. It is very hard to be found because you can't go to the bigger companies. They water it down and do high grade brewing. No offense to those guys, they do their business. I
Yes.
respect them and what they do as well. That's not the thing that I wanted in my brewery, so I go for a full grain, 8% ale, which has a lot of flavor. Because back then I wasn't with the beers like Saint Bernardus 12, Chimay Bleu, Rochefort 10. Those still quite good. There was back in the day they were still good as well. And I tried to make something similar with ABV because I like drinking volume as well. And if you check down Rochefort 10, that's 0.3%. If you go down 5 or 6 of them, it became hard to go quite safely. So I developed my Cantal as 8% brown ale. And after that, I don't know the exact order anymore, but I think the year after that, I developed 3 blacks. Those days in Belgium, black beer was very, very unpopular. And actually, still now, if you talk about black beer, people don't know what you're talking about. And quite often they refer to it's not like Guinness then. And
Yeah.
that's all they
Yeah.
know.
Yes. Yes.
Black beer is really a style which is in Belgium, it is forgotten. It is very strange to see that black beer is so important in the beer world, in the beer geek world. I adore it. But to a regular person, and you talk about black beer, they don't know what you mean. What do you mean black? That's like brown. No. I mean black beer. So what I tried to do back then, I think it was 2012 or 2013, I brewed a threesome of black beers. They were called, they're still called the Optimo Maximo, which is Latin for God Almighty. Uh, D.O.M, which is Odom Aldere, which is the abbreviation of my brewery. And what I did was developed a very unique clip to hold 3 bottles, and I would only sell to shops who sell them in 3 packs. Because actually, what I tried to do is educate the beer drinker.
Yeah.
I didn't want them to choose one of the 3 and buy one of the 3 and thought that is black. What I did was a 5% porter, which I'm drinking actually right now. I still have to work today. But a 5% porter, 8% slightly smoked stout, and 11.5% imperial stout. And you have to drink them in that order to enjoy them properly. But I sold them in pack to let people, actually to push people, to buy the 3 and do a drinking tasting session 3. And then, well, some of them might say, well, this is not my cup of tea. But some of them were like, wow, I didn't know black beer had such a variety.
Yeah.
But if you talk about in Belgium, everyone refers to a pint of Guinness. And even that, I have
True.
Guinness on tap. That's my guilty pleasure. I chuck down Guinness because you don't get drunk of Guinness. And I can chuck down 10 glasses easily at the tap in my bar.
Yeah.
And so that's my cup of lemonade, actually, what I do. But you have to be honest, it is quite a commercial beer. And, well, let us say there is not so much taste and flavor, nor body or thickness in a pint of Guinness.
True.
And still people are very, very off-putted. Oh, no, it's terrible, it's rubbish. It is quite drinkable. It is not so special in taste. But I like it a lot. Instead of drinking a lager or a Pils beer, you can please me way more with a pint. To prove that not every black beer had to taste like Guinness, I brewed 3 black beers, not Belgium inspired, but I gave my own twist to it because I'm a Belgian brewer. So I use Belgian hops and, well, the most as I can. I use Belgian water. I have old equipment, and that defines something which is very similar in all my beers, and that is what people call a certain kind of style of a brewer or a brewery. I think I would brew the same beer in another very modern kit. It would still have my stamp on it, but it would be less. It is the combination of what I do, how I do it, actually putting always 20%, way too much malt in a beer, because I don't care the money I spent on malt. I care about the final flavor of a beer. And I like beers to be thick and have a lot of viscosity. And that's why I always over malt my beers. I don't mind being well, that the cost of my beer is a bit more expensive. It reflects in the flavor and the taste you have in your beer. I might sound old-fashioned quite a lot, but I stopped caring a long time ago. I wanted to prove myself that I could make a good beer, and I never tried to convince or to someone else that I can brew. It's not important that you think that I can brew or not. The most important thing is for me is that I can do something creative.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna put it another way. I can't paint, I can't sing, I can't play an instrument,
But
I can't stone cut. There is a lot of I can't do graffiti or I can't express myself. I didn't found my canvas, and I still was a lot of very creative. I didn't find anything to express it in. And after a while, back in 2011, I started that brewing, and that was my cup of tea. In combination with the fact that I very, very bored very soon by stuff. If I get to know something, I get bored quite soon. And beer was never ending because you can never try all the beers. You can never know everything about beer. You can never brew all the beers. So because beer is a never-ending story for me, that's why I can keep on doing beer for a long period of time. Every other job I did and every other thing I learned, I got bored of sooner or later. But beer is the longest thing ever in my life, except with my car that I own. It has been around for so long. It's my canvas to express myself. And of course, I like it when you like me as a brewer and you like beer. And I do have to make sales to make a living because I made the choice to do this as a profession and not as a hobby, like a lot of Belgian other brewers. So I have to live. But you see, in my way of living, even my daily driving car is 38 years old. My van is 14 years old. I don't buy new stuff because I don't have the for it. And I don't push to get more money because the quality is way more important for me in my beer. I don't care about the cost of brewing a liter of beer. And I know that I have to sell quite a decent price to be kind of competitive. Actually, my price is a bit too low for the quality I brew, but that's the Belgian market. Belgium is the most difficult country in the world to sell your beer in. We have way too many,
Germany.
and people don't know the difference between. Yeah, but okay, but yeah, true. But I think I would sell well in Germany because I would be very awkward because I don't brew the regular Pilsner, Heller, and that. But I would brew Belgian-style beers.
Yeah.
Germans still like Belgian beers, and they
True.
try to copy them, and they don't try to make them. So they like them a lot because they have the Reinheitsgebot, and a lot of people still live by it. They don't brew kinds of beer, but they still like it. How would you be if you would be in Germany, drinking lagers and all types and variations of that kind of 5% blonde style for decades? You would enjoy your Belgian beer as well, I think.
Is your beer, if we see it on the map, you're located in the Golden Triangle of Flanders, of course, with a lot of cool brewers. But is most of what is the percentage that is consumed locally? What is the percentage in Belgium? And how much do you export of your beer?
Well, I don't have the exact numbers because, well, being the creative type, I'm not the kind of type who does a lot of spreadsheets like that. So I have to guess a little bit. But my export to other countries is very, very limited. Only when I make a good deal with. In the past, I have done a deal with the local club in Sweden. Well, that takes up like 1,075, 70 bottles. That's a good deal, and that
Okay.
would be like the majority of the export that year. I have
Yeah.
small export, a little bit to France. I have a little bit to it, but it's not copious amounts. It's very small range. So let me say, to do a guess, between 5 and 10%, not even 10%, maybe 5%
And is
is
it
going
also
to
towards
other countries.
bars?
It's difficult to export.
Is it also you export
Well,
kegs
quite
to
often,
bars?
well, it depends. I think for the export, half is to bars and half is to bottle shops and
Yeah.
wholesale. Um, I do have a very nice bar in Italy who comes by every year. He comes with he comes and picks up like a pallet of beer of my brewery. He loves my brewery. He loves being here. He comes with two friends, does a little tour in Belgium, and stuffs up his van with a lot of my beer, and then he can take him another year. So
Cool.
these little separate cases, well, let me do like 5 or 10%, but only people know. I never had anyone I don't know give me a call like, "Hi, I want to import your beer in our country." It just doesn't happen. Um, I'm not the commercial brewer. I don't do sales, and I don't have a salesman doing it for me. So
Yes.
actually, my sales go slow. I know that, and I I was a salesman back in the day, and I don't like, and not even for my own beer. I am very, very happy that some people just come up to me and want to buy my beer, because actually there are no sales. I don't do sales calls. I don't do emails. I have no one doing that for me. So I am very, very lucky with every sale I have. So I just get enough money to survive every month. Um, is very nice for me without doing actual sales or
Yeah.
investing in sales. In Belgium itself, I think probably of the last 9%, I think about 50% of that is going to be in West Vlaanderen, Koekel, in our province, and maybe the other 40% is going to a couple of wholesalers um, elsewhere. In Belgium, it is a very small country. There is a
Yes.
very, very big border. It is the language border. It's not a physical border. There's no wall there. There's nothing. But the language border divides Wallonia and Flanders so
Yeah.
much
True.
that
True.
it's very, very difficult to find Wallonian beers in France and the other way around. We all know that. We can all
Yeah. Same
acknowledge that.
Brussels, Antwerp also.
Um, that's but actually, if you would like to do more sales, you don't have to look to the export markets. Look to Wallonia. That's still Belgium. There is so much you can sell there because that is a virgin market for every Flanders
Yeah.
brewery. Uh, and so I don't have a lot of customers there. But if you would look on paper, good. I have one big wholesaler there, and I have one bar in Tournai, in Doornik, just a half an hour drive from here. But that's one bar who ordered, well, 2 times already, a
Yeah.
beer that I brew for his bar. It's a
Okay.
small bar, loves my brewery, and he was very, very pleased that I would make a special brew, 1,000 liters for him.
Okay.
So if you check what I brew in a year, and then you see that he ordered 2,000 in a year, and I only brew like 40,000 liters in a year, well, that's a good customer, you see. And he sells a
That's
lot of my
cool.
other beers as well, and yeah, but he knows about this border, and that's why in his fridge, I think he has about 130 beers in his small bar, and I think the majority is from Flanders. He wants to introduce the good things of Flanders to the Wallonian people, but the other way around. We are well, you all have heard from La Capsule in Lille in France. It's a very famous beer place. Well, the three of us are seeing if we can work together So good Flanders stuff will be sold in Wallonia. Good Wallonian stuff will be sold in France. French stuff will be sold in my place. So we're gonna try to do a triangle because we're all 1.5 hour drive from each other. So it's a little triangle, and we're gonna do a weekend, visit 3 bars, and we will present not our own good stuff, but we will present someone else's good stuff and try to mix it up, show people off that you don't have to go far to get good stuff, which is well foreign, which is more straight.
Yeah, indeed.
So
Um,
always trying to look into events, nice stuff, rather than the regular beer festivals. A lot of people do for getting sales. Um, and whatever's on my way, I evaluate and I choose the things that I like to do. And quite often it's not the commercial choice; it's just the nice stuff and the thing I believe in. And even without bringing a lot of money in the till, it's just going to be what I like to do and what I believe is good for beer and Belgian beer in general.
yeah. You also mentioned your restaurant. How? What was the inspiration about that? Is that typical the Flemish dish paired with your beer things, or what do we have to think about that?
Indeed. Just give me 1 minute. I'm going to order beer. My girlfriend is downstairs in the bar, so I'm ordering beer at her. Actually, the restaurant just came in 2009. The bar has been there since 2015. In 16, the brewery was, and in 19, we began the restaurant as well. It is like I live. It is not a steady plan. I didn't have to open a restaurant. But I didn't have a plan to open a bar. I wanted a brewery. But to make my brewery work in the way I wanted, I needed a bar to sell my beer firsthand. So I
Uh,
became a bartender. Actually, that was not my plan. And when I was younger, I actually said to myself, I was never going to tend a bar. I hated bartending. I was never going to do it. I was never going to own a bar. And about years later, I had my own bar because it was necessary to have my brewery. I knew food was going to be a very good thing in my bar, but I was not going to cook and serve. I don't like it. Um, so I tried a couple of things, doing toasted bread and doing a spaghetti, which is quite traditional in Belgium to serve spaghetti in a bar. Um, but in the Brussels Beer Festival, before I met you guys, um, it was my first time that I could do a big known international beer festival like that. So I was very, very proud. But actually, I met a girl there. She came to my bar, and she was the friend of a friend I already knew who was into beer. And apparently, she had her own beer restaurant in Leuven, of the Oude Markt, called El Café. She did Belgian traditional food and a wide variety of decent beers. Uh, she started out with her sister. Her sister left the place. She continued. It was her and her grandmother's dream. So she continued, but it was hard because the Oude Markt in Leuven changed. And instead of a very nice and cozy place where a lot of tourists came, it became a student area with a lot of bars, a lot of drinking, a lot of noise at night,
yeah,
in
race to the bottom.
concentration of where students go at night. Yeah, and she was in the middle, an expensive thing, with her restaurant, and it was not working out as it's supposed to be. So we met, we start hanging around, talking, fantasizing, thinking, and we decided we might do something together. And actually, we designed a worldwide franchise. That was before I saw the movie. How it's called? Faust. The movie about the McDonald's and the franchise of McDonald's. That was
Yeah,
before it,
yeah,
actually.
yes.
But what we were going to do was actually, she had a bar with beer and a restaurant. I had a brewery and a bar. So what we were going to do was actually, we better plan to do it, was actually combine a restaurant, a bar, and a brewery. So a decent brew pub with the same name, and we put it in different places. First one would be in Izegem, and second one in Leuven. I designed the brew and had it made in China, completely at my will, and that actually at the last moment changed plans, and I sold the brewery to someone else. It's built up right now. Was the thing that we were going to do. We could install a kitchen at my place, doing food, having the same menu at her place, doing beers, and we were already negotiating with places to go to in Antwerp. I was having a guy in Amsterdam checking out properties as well, and it was such a nice idea, and it was so big, and it was dreamy, and it was to do it because designing something dreamy is very fantastic to do. A lot of phantasm in there, but as we sat down, it was going to be hard, and we need way too much money. And if you start with investors, it is not so fun to do anymore, and you have to gain a lot of money. And we decided not to. And back then, her business was going a bit down, so we made that she moved from Leuven to Isegem. She became to live with me, and became my girlfriend in that time. And she quit her business and put all the effort in our mutual business right now. So she is doing all the cooking, helping me in the bar. I do all the brewing and helping out in the bar. And so with the two of us, we joined forces and combine everything we're good at. And actually, she works in the kitchen the same way I brew, in a decent way, a lot of decent ingredients, local, and being the quality the most important, not the price. And that's the same way she in the kitchen. We have local meat, we have local vegetables, very fresh, well made, decent made. And that's so I work in the brewery. That's how she works in the. Thank you very much, dear.
All right, Jeff. Final question that I'd like to ask a lot of our guests. Is there a definition of craft beer? If yes, what is it?
Do you ask everyone?
Almost.
It seems to be a question that is designed for me. Um, um, I've been thinking a lot about this. And actually, I am one of the few, I think, went so deep in doing all the thinking about a definition of craft beer in Belgium. I know about the definition in America, and I know that it's worth almost nothing because they change it every year. I was going to try to define. The definition is to define, and well, you have to make it work. It needs to be a definition, not something you tell and which changes the year after. And to make a good definition for beer, there is a lot of thinking to do. And actually, I did all that. In the end, when I was 90% done with all the thinking about it, I asked a question to some friends and on Facebook if there was a need for a definition. Because I did all the work and it was nice for me to do it. It took me one step further in thinking about beer. But I didn't thought about the fact if it was necessary to have a definition. And I had to join the small majority of people, actually. And that is, it is way more pleasant to keep on talking about it with a good glass of beer in hand than to really have that closes down the discussion about it. That's why I never wrote it down. I never finished it completely. But one of the first steps you have to do if you want to define craft in Belgium is don't think about the quantity. There is no quantity in craft beer. And actually, that's the first mistake Americans make in their. They take quantity as one of the measurements to be craft or not. I started working from the bottom down and way up with all the breweries I know. Maybe small to be craft. Well, that's depending. Are you going to call Rodem craft beer brewery or not? My colleague, which is just 2 kilometers away, Van Honzenbroek. If I would talk about a brewery that makes 30 kinds of beer, who has fooders as well, who makes a proper creek beer and uses creeks in there as well, who has an oat bruin as well. Well, would you call him craft or not? So when I came to all questions, I started defining from that way up. And it is not the quantity of the volume you produce, it is actually the factor that you get by dividing the volume you do by the number of people who make it. That's what craft is about. Craft is about crafty, is about handmade. So in my brewery, I make 1,000-liter batches all by myself. If I would upscale to 5,000 liters with craft beer, well, if I didn't need the money, yes. If I upscale, I need the money, so I have to produce more, have to go faster, have to do more efficiency, and I would lose a craft in it. If I would have no need of money, I could upscale to 5,000 liters and work with 5 there. You see that factor, how that changes. So that was the first thing. You don't need the volume, it's the factor of the volume divided by the people working there. And then the second big thing I did was split up. Designing 3 logos. One with a brewery, a glass of beer, and one with a person. So there is no craft beer unless there is a craft brewer and a craft brewery. So I was not going to do beer as a craft beer. I was going to issue 3 logos. And on models, I could easily say that would be all 3. I'm a craft brewer, in a craft brewery, and my beer is a craft beer. So I would split up the definition into 3 definitions. What is a craft brewer? What is a craft brewery? And what is a craft beer? That will be way easier to define in that way. Then you get these strange kind of questions. If I would go to an industrial brewery and a craft brewer, I would make a beer in the industrial brewery. Well, I couldn't put on the logo of a craft brewery, but I could put the logo of a craft brewer. And then you have to see how your definition goes about beer to see if you could put up the logo for beer. Dividing that into 3 things was easier to define. Can you make a craft in an industrial brewery? Oh, yes, you can. Can a craft brewer? Yeah. Can a brewer make an industrial beer? Of course he can. But, well, I drew everything out, and there are relations that go both ways, and some things just couldn't work. And I developed definitions that said what was a craft beer, what was a craft brewery, what was a craft brewer. I'm not going to explain more than that. We could discuss hours and it would be interesting. But that was the beginning of all the thinking work I did to get to a definite definition of craft beer in Belgium. But as I say in the beginning, it's way nicer to talk about it than to. Otherwise, you couldn't be asking that question to everyone.
Indeed. All right, Jeff Pirens, thank you very much, and see you very soon after the lockdown
Yes.
when I'm in West Flanders, the brew pearl of Belgium, of course. All right, thanks for having
Yeah,
you.
well, I don't want to snap.
What?
Thank you very much, man. Hope to see you again.
All right.
Hope to see you
Cheers.
again.